Hello everybody! So on my birthday I promised to share with you some of the crazy inner child stuff that came up for myself. What I didn't realize is that the very next day all of Siman's inner child stuff would come out. And then in my sleep on November 7th, which was the day after my birthday, I got this download. I was woken up. That's usually how I get messages in the middle of the night. I'm woken up with a bad dream, or I'm woken up with like a jolt literally. And I think, all right, let me just go to the washroom and come back. And when I come back, it's inserted into me. Like you feel it the same way,
downloads.
Right? Yeah, it's like a download. That's many of you have
and you
experienced
literally feel
this.
the moment the download is dropped into you, and you know it's from outside.
It's like a second. It just takes a second. It's like, okay, it's a download. So the download that I got was make a video and call it The Return of the Christed Inner Child. And it just came in as a knowingness that this is so important for the collective. So grab yourself a cup of tea, and we have not rehearsed this video at all. Like most of our videos, we're just going to flow. We really feel like some very vulnerable aspects of our own inner child healing, trauma healing, wish to express itself, and we feel safe expressing it to you guys. You're our soul family. And as I have always said and shared with you guys, your love heals us deeply, so deeply. So I just want to go back to my birthday and share with you that every single year on my birthday in my adult life, I had deep trauma surface of not feeling loved as a child, but it didn't surface as wanting love. What happened was it always surfaced as an irritation that I felt within myself, a deep irritation, a deep it's almost like that child that's untamed, that doesn't behave and is hiding every day, but on the birthday she would appear and she would throw tantrums, she would throw fits. I'm talking about last year and all the years until last year since I met Siman. On my birthday, every single year, like we don't usually fight, we don't usually get into arguments, but on my birthday every single year, and last year was the worst, I remember an alter ego of mine literally shaping up, like an alter ego, and we would always fight because that part of me wanted Siman's love so bad, because that part of me was what I perceived as the ugly version, or the untamed version, or the not well-behaved version, or the cranky version, or the version that society didn't like, right? And it would always surface in me as, okay, let me test and see if Siman loves me enough to tolerate that side of me. So he wasn't aware until 2 years ago of this deep trauma, that every year on my birthday something would happen and we would fight like crazy because I would be out of sorts. I would be out of whack on my birthday. Last year when it came up, I had a breakthrough last year, and I know I made a post last year. I was in the US. I remember many of you, that post it got a lot of momentum because so many of you could relate to that. I basically trained my own self when we fought, and he started, because I feel is one of my earth guides. He tunes into when I need love and when I need distance. And when he started giving me distance on my birthday last year, I was devastated. I'm like, even he doesn't understand. But then when I coached my own inner self, we'll get to all of that at the end, I could see what was going on. It was a part of me so deep, it was a part of me that showed itself hoping to be loved by Siman. And the breakthrough I had was when I didn't find that love from Siman, I realized that what that person, the only person that child is safe with, that child who's crazy and with her hair in a mess and snot running down her nose and angry and swearing, whatever that version of that child may be, is safe only and only with me. And once she feels safe with me is when everything shifts and she can incorporate that into the world. I also want to share that this year on my birthday, how did it happen? We woke up in the morning.
So initially when we got here to the Arnal volcano, instantly we connected with the spirit of this mountain, which is an enormous spirit, and we started communicating with it right away. And I asked very lovingly for the spirit to hold space for us during the entirety of this trip for any healing that needs to come through, because when we're in such high vibrational vortices, some deep healing comes through. So what took place, every time we set intention for such healing, the guides and our higher self always orchestrate events that trigger something in us to allow that healing to take place. So what occurred this time was that Eldora has been going through her healing of her inner child, but my inner child healing also came up, which was a shock to me, because until now I've been under the impression that I had a great childhood and everything was perfect and I had such loving parents. But I realized that I have been like, you know how victims always somehow they justify the abuse somehow, because the abuser usually instills the belief in you that you're at fault and you need to be punished and you deserve this punishment and I'm doing this for your own good. So I realized that I had been ignoring a deep part of myself that had been emotionally abused and physically abused in some cases as well. The physical part was not as big, but the emotional part was very huge because it had left a scar in me. It was like a gaping hole that I was carrying all these years that I wasn't even aware of. So what occurred was that some incident occurred, and because Eldora was going through her inner child healing of the birthday, I suddenly felt my own wound of Earth is not a safe place to be in. And I felt Earth was not safe, and I felt okay, I'm going into this healing state and I need to hold space for myself. And that's when the mountain spirits and my guides and my higher self came around me and they said, okay, we'll walk you through this. So instead of attaching to this pain that I'm feeling in my heart, they said, go back in time and ask yourself, when was the first time you felt this way? So I said, yeah, it's most likely from my past marriage when I was constantly feeling unsafe and my home was not safe. There was constant volatility. There was anger being thrown around. So I said, yeah, that's most likely it. And they said, nope, go back even further. And I'm like, okay, when else did I not feel that Earth is safe? And they said, go back to your childhood. And that's the key, because most of the wounds that we carry in our aura somehow originate in our childhood. And not only in our childhood, they actually originate in ancient past lives, and we keep replaying these traumas in each lifetime until we bring them to the forefront to heal them. So I went back into my childhood, and the first memory that I felt that Earth is not a safe place to be in was when I was about 2 to 2.5 years old, and my mother had left for the day, and I was my dad was in charge and he was taking care of me. But he was a very old school dad, no disrespect. He was doing the best he can with the consciousness level that he was at, but it was not the kind of love that a child expects. So I was like crying uncontrollably that day. I still remember very vividly because it's burnt, this memory's etched into my soul. So I believe it's a past life wound because it's so huge. So I was crying uncontrollably, and my father locked me up in the washroom. I remember very vividly that I remember the washroom, what it looked like. It was an old 100-year-old house that we used to live in those days. So it was kind of a scary place to be for a child in any case. And that was the first time I had felt alone and abandoned, because my mother wasn't there and there was nobody else I could call out to help for. And I remember just banging on the door in despair and just bawling my eyes out. And all these years I had carried this memory with me, but I didn't make much of it. I thought I'm an extra sensitive soul, and that's why I'm making it a bigger deal than it actually is. Like, every child's been locked up, right? Like, what's the big deal? But what my guides wanted to show me, what the higher self wanted to show me, was that it's not okay. Just because Earth is such a barbaric place, and just because you have accepted the way things are done on Earth for so long, that doesn't make it okay. If you look at all the way children are raised based on how civilized society in higher dimensions, in ascended societies, how they raise their children, you live in a barbaric world where this world is not safe for children to be in. And that is also in a way by design. We go through a lot of traumas because we need to heal those traumas in our fragmented consciousness of humanity. So the first realization that was a breakthrough for me is that any level of abuse, whether emotional, physical, mental, it's not okay. And when I realized that, I realized that I need to heal this wound. So they guided me through this. I'm going to explain the process later on in the video of how the main point is the transmission of this message is how you can heal your own inner child, and how that is one of the most profound healings you'll ever go through. So I'll explain the process later, but long story short.
But even about how you carried that in your life.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing. That's the message. That's what we want to share with you.
Yeah. So basically when this wound is brought to my forefront, I was also being shown how until we actually address the wound, we keep on replaying those wounds in our daily lives throughout our life until we are ready to heal it.
And also, we numb ourselves. We numb ourselves. Like with Siman, this happened when he was 2.5 or 3 years old. And then he kept justifying, because a lot of old school 3D families, they brainwash you to thinking that this is the way. You're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. And about how you're Adil.
Yeah, so my brother, who was 12 years old, had committed suicide. And that was a huge trauma in itself for me. And that, I feel, that's also a reflection of my inner child wound, because I felt like a parent to him. I was 6 years older than him, but I felt so much love towards him, as if we're soul brothers from the same cosmic family. And I really used to parent him because there were some deficiencies in the way my parents were parenting us. And we did not feel safe. We did not feel loved. And I know many of the people listening to this message can relate to that. We've never felt safe in our childhood. So what happens when we go through these traumatic events as a child, a lot of empaths and light workers and people who are on the spiritual path, who are awakening right now, we have come to earth from ascended societies, and we are very sensitive souls. Our levels of sensitivity and empathy are way higher than the average human. The average human has just become so dense that they accept this as a way of life, and they've kept on burying their traumas to the point where they're just numb right now. That's what's being shown to us, that humanity is under so much stress and trauma that they're numb, and all this healing needs to take place in our collective, which may take years and decades depending on the soul's own journey, how fast they want to heal. So what happens when we go through these intense traumas, being sensitive souls, another point I wanted to add is that many souls who have just arrived on earth to volunteer for this ascension, we have not had much training for harsh environments like these planes like earth. We have not been in duality much. So we come from very high planes of existence. We chose to volunteer on earth knowing fully well how harsh it's going to be, and we only had a few lifetimes of preparation before we came into this current incarnation of ascension. So what takes place is that these traumas are so intense in our childhood that they actually fragment our souls, and our inner child, when it receives a wound that it cannot tolerate, or it cannot bear to feel the intensity of that pain while it's going through that abuse, it actually creates a separation inside you. It's like a self-protection mechanism. So that fragmented version of you gets locked away by your soul in a dark chamber within your consciousness, because you're simply not capable of processing the intensity of that pain, because you have other things going on. Life hits you, and you have so many things that you are not ready yet to go through that intensity of healing. So when we came to this healing vortex of Arnal with this volcano, for the first time in our lives, Eldora and I are feeling safe after being in Costa Rica.
Seriously.
Because you can explain more about that, but it's making us feel so safe.
Yeah, and I
being
feel
here.
like it's the safeness, guys, is not just, it's so much. So like even when we started, I've shared with you many times how when we started our Facebook pages and everybody in Toronto loved us, like the spiritual community of Toronto, until we started flying. And once we started flying, the same people who loved us sent so much negativity, toxicity, attacks towards us. So every time we try to take off, they would try to hold us back. And that's really how the dark works, right? We're light workers, we want to fly up. The dark makes up so many excuses. So first we started off with, like, we both had very abusive childhoods. Like with Siman, he's seen his brother jump off the 28th floor, a 14-year-old child jump off the 28th. He was 12?
Yeah.
And that too, it was because he was unable to handle the dictatorial ways of his dad. That's why we feel he left Earth. And then Siman had to see all of that. And then he got into a marriage that was worse. A 15-year-long marriage with a narcissist, because Siman at a deep level started to believe that something's wrong with me. I am too gentle. I am an empath. I'm too sensitive. My dad's not the fault, because 3D stares at you everywhere. 3D used to be the majority. So we always justified the acts of our parents or our family or our toxic friends or anybody in our field. We justified it by thinking, oh, we better not say anything. Something's wrong with us. So when we arrived in Costa Rica, we're feeling safe to the point that every interaction, like, you know, in Toronto, we were finding every interaction, even when you go to a mall or you go to a restaurant or you go to a patio just to have a nice, you know, drink in the night and you just want to chill. There's so much stress in the air that you're constantly reflected the stress of the matrix. Everywhere you go, even in a grocery store, even the cashier. We didn't realize all of this. We were feeling it, but we didn't realize the transformation we would have when we came here. When we came here, literally, our life transformed to every interaction, every single interaction being one with love. Like even the security guard in our building, he's like, they're so loving, so caring.
And genuine, not just made up.
It's authentic. And even in the resort here, like you should see the way they spoil us. They drop us breakfast. They come back. Like it's just a different dimension. We go to the beach, people are nice. Even the animals are so nice. Like when we were in some parts of the world, the animals are aggressive. Here in Costa Rica, even the animals are so kind, so gentle, so soft. And not to mention, we've left Toronto, so that energy of the Toronto spiritual, the hippie circle, the hippie core community of Toronto, which really tried to put its fangs of venom in us. We feel like now that we're away from all of that and we've disconnected from our parents completely, Siman and I feel no resonance with our families. In fact, we look at them as 3D actors. And this may be a shock for many of you, but I'm saying this in my full groundedness and my full authenticity. I've come to a realization that love is the only currency. If there's no love and there's no respect, there's nothing that you can say to yourself that can justify you having to have a relationship with another person. Whether that person is your father or your mother, love is the foundation. But society and the matrix have programmed us that no, if that's your father, like religion, like when I used to follow Islam, religion had programmed us that heaven lies in the feet of your mother. And do you know how many of my Muslim friends, like female friends, can't stand their mothers-in-law? They just want their mothers-in-law to die. Like how harsh is that? That's because of what religion has done. So what these women would encounter is, okay, my mother-in-law is being a bitch to me and a bitch to her own son, but we have to suck up to her and give her the place, you know, of a great mother and tolerate her, because that's where heaven lies, in the feet of the mother. That's all just bullshit. That's how religion has kept you small. That's how religion has fucked you up. Seriously. And we've all been through that. Siman and I have been through that. Siman has read many scriptures and he's aware of all of that. I haven't, thankfully. I don't need to read all that. But all of this, we're feeling safe again here. And because we're feeling safe, the healing is expressing itself.
Yes.
Right? So basically, back to your story is when you went through all of that, you at 17 or 18, you got married.
So there was one day I spent literally spending hours on this particular healing that I was being guided through by my higher self. And it was showing me how initially the inner child gets fragmented when you go through this intense trauma, whatever that may be for you. Everyone carries to some extent this inner child wound that we need to heal. And then what happens is that when we don't heal this fragmented aspect of ourself, that person kind of like becomes a puppet master to subconsciously create situations through your chakras to send signals to people around you to create healing situations.
Yes.
But usually that comes out as trauma.
I love how you said that. Explain that more.
Yeah, so basically,
an example.
An example of that is how I got into my first marriage, which was a very abusive marriage. And because I didn't feel safe, my first impression of being on planet Earth as a 2-year-old was that this is not a safe place for me, even if my most trusted people that I love being my parents are not safe, then what else do I have to cling on to? So that foundation was completely wiped off. And because of that belief or that wound, I manifested a relationship where I needed to constantly reflect to myself that I am not safe. So we create all these situations. It's not that you just make a bad decision and you end up in a bad marriage. That's not how it works.
Because if you didn't have that trauma, you would recognize very early on that this woman is not safe for me and leave.
Exactly.
But instead, when the trauma is so prevalent in you and you're unawake, you're unconscious, you don't even realize it, it's like having a glass of trauma, and that glass gives you a filter of life that takes you off on a different trajectory. So every time he was in this severely abusive, like, I'm talking about levels I haven't seen in humanity, and I'm not making this up, like the kind of emotional abuse that he's been through for 12 to 15 years. And I always ask him, I'm like, why didn't you leave? Like, he never cheated on her. Forget that. I said to him, I'm like, you didn't even cheat on her. Like, he was a DJ and girls would throw themselves at him, and never in 12 years, cheating just isn't a part of his psyche. So I said, all right, then how did you handle it? You didn't cheat, you didn't turn to drugs, you didn't treat to alcohol. He said, I expressed my creativity. I went and I DJ'd. So he somehow managed to keep himself in that relationship, but not once until his guide spoke to him for the very first time. Remember? That's the first time you heard your guides, and they said, my child.
There was one incident in that in my ex-marriage that I remember, that we were just screaming and shouting, and I remember my guides for the first time speaking to me in a lucid way that I could literally make out their words, and they said, my dear child, you are in an abusive relationship and you need to get out as soon as possible. Because it was getting to the level where it was like dangerously explosive, like something could have triggered and I could have ended up in jail or some false accusations, but there was a lot of rockiness, there was no foundation. So,
and the funny thing is, he's the most gentle person. Like I always say to him, you're like a lamb. Like, you know, that energy of, it's very powerful, but extremely soft, extremely gentle. Like women, like especially you'll see when you're around him, like in all our events in the past, all the women said one thing. They said, we feel so safe with Siman. We feel so safe with Siman. You carry this father energy.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that a person like you drew that into your life.
But you see, each relationship is such a teacher for you that even though I consider myself to be one of the most peaceful and calm people I know on earth, and I'm saying that without any ego.
And I can attest to that.
However, that relationship brought all my anger wounds up. And I never even realized that I was carrying all this anger. And I'm thinking, I had such a peaceful childhood. Where is this anger coming from? And now I'm realizing how much of this original trauma of separation from my parents, separation from unity consciousness that I was carrying in my soul, that it wanted to express itself as just anger. So long story short, that was a toxic relationship that I needed to get out of ASAP, and I did. And since I met Eldora, since we met each other actually, our healing journey has just skyrocketed. Like, we've just held this space of unconditional love for each other. And even us being together, we did not feel safe in Toronto initially for the first 5 years of us being together. And we had to kind of like hold the fort and create our own bubble of healing and like isolate ourselves so that we could rise. But when we came to Costa Rica, this is where the actual healing is beginning, and it's actually healing us at a microcellular level. I cannot even explain it. It's healing us at a core soul level, And it feels like all fragmented aspects of ourselves are coming up in front of us and asking to be examined and reintegrated with ourselves.
And I want to add something here. A lot of you watching are healers. You guys are all on the path where you know these techniques. Like Siman, for example, has led me through these techniques so many times. He's led clients through these techniques when he used to, back in the day when he used to do one-on-one energy sessions. But when it comes to yourself and when you're in the trauma, I'm not even making this up. Like if you're a seasoned healer, but you're in that trauma, it's very often, it's very likely that you can't see your own trauma. You can't, like it's very easy to slip by you.
Yeah.
So it's very important to really, really dive deep. Hi, Birdie. It's so important for you to dive deep into your... So guys, when birds do that, just so you know, what I like to do is I open up all my senses and I say, Ascended Masters, yeah, send us the codes. I feel like Ascended Masters send us codes through the birds, through the spirits. And it happens all the time. So
these are transmissions you can actually receive.
Yes.
If you tune into that frequency with your third eye.
This is how the Arcturians, the Andromedans, they send us upgrades like this. And this is happening all the time. These data packets of upgrades, we always trail off and go on a different tangent. But it's, I know you guys love it. But these are very important because these are transitions and upgrades that come in individual light packets for each of us. So let's say you need an upgrade on something. Boom, that bird could very well be sending it to us and maybe to you through this transmission right now.
Yeah.
So one thing I did want to go back to is how this feeling of being unsafe on this planet can be affecting you at a deep subconscious level. So really, really a few tips that I can share is anybody that doesn't feel safe, be unapologetic about cutting yourself out or cutting them out of your life and be unapologetic about it. There's a lot of guilt and stories that we make. These are all here to keep us dumb, to keep us numb, to keep us really, really, really dumbed down. I also want to share with you how Siman helped me through my healing. That was fabulous.
Actually, you tell the story.
You tell the story.
Okay, fine.
On November 6th, on my birthday, this is what happened 3 days ago, before his healing came up.
Yeah.
So I woke up and there, I thought I had healed that cranky side of me. Literally, I woke up and I said, all right, perfect. This year, I'm not going to accept any gifts. Because see, on my birthday, I didn't receive love. I didn't receive any love in my childhood. I had a very abusive childhood. But on my birthday, I received love from my parents. They'd be nice to me. They'd buy me gifts. I would be the center of attention. Nobody got mad at me. So I carried that wound to like until now. So on my birthday, I knew he had something up his sleeve. But I was like stressed. I'm like, I don't want him to think I need a gift. Like that inner child aspect of mine was out of whack. Like it wasn't the wise, calm, peaceful, knowledgeable Eldora. It's that side of Eldora that really, really isn't mature, isn't able to talk herself out of how she's feeling. And I'll tell you how we incorporated all of that so beautifully. He helped me through it. But what came up when I woke up was, again, something like I knew he was planning something, and it happened to be a beautiful romantic package in the spa for both of us. We went for a couple's massage, a couple's facial. There was a jacuzzi in there with this hot spring water overlooking the jungle. It was so beautiful. But that was all in the evening. In the morning when I woke up, I had so much, again, I was like, shit, I thought I healed this. But I was like getting irritated with him and getting angry with him. Every year, guys, on my birthday, this happens like clockwork. On my birthday, it happens. And then he said to me, he says, and he led me through this. He said, all right, lie down.
Yeah, I felt called to immediately create a healing space around her and address the situation, because we're both at a level of consciousness where we see the underlying cause. We don't attach to the story. So she picked up right away, and she went into that mode of receiving healing.
And which was that time? Oh yes. So he said, go back in your childhood and see where where does it stem from? It stemmed from a time, believe it or not, I'm going to undo my hair so you can see. It stems from a time when I actually looked like this. You see my inner child? And it's so synchronistic that I actually cut my hair short, because that was my biggest trauma. That was my biggest trigger when I was young. When I was little, my father, not young, when I was a teenager, and I had very pretty hair, and I had started looking pretty, and I had started getting attention from boys, and my father said, no, you're getting too pretty. I'm going to go cut your hair and I'm going to make it a boy cut, like a short boy cut. And that traumatized me so deeply that when this haircut happened, I told her to take off an inch. She took off 6 or 8 inch, like a lot. She took off a lot of hair. It brought up that trauma. But that was also part of my inner child healing. So when I look at myself right now with my hair short, a lot of you have been saying, I love your hair, but it's very healing for me because this is the first time I've let my inner child take the stage, be center of attention. And that was the download, that your inner child is the most powerful, most sacred, most pure, most ascended master version of you.
Yes.
And when the inner child is unsafe, when the inner child doesn't feel safe to express itself, when it's shunned, I always had this particular look of me. Like right now, look, I'm purposely not doing anything to my hair because I don't want to shun my inner child anymore. I want to accept her, love her, and give her the stage. So right now the download that I had was the return of the Christed inner child. It's happening in the collective and how important it is for me. Siman's going to walk you through how to heal this. And you know, when he did the healing with me and I healed it, he made me go through a series of visions and we picked up 3 or 4 fragmented parts of my inner child. And then Siman said to me, so what do you want to do with them? Like, think of you right now as Eldora and go back and what would you like to do with them? So you know what I did, guys? It was so freeing and I bawled and bawled and bawled on my birthday. I cried so much. I went back in time. I picked up all versions of myself, like the little girl who was 4 years old and then the teenage.
One who was locked up in the room.
There was one time as a teenager, I was getting a lot of attention from boys. I was such a good student. I was like always top in my class. I did everything to impress them, but when boys started giving me attention, they locked me up in a room. They couldn't handle it. They locked me up in a room for 3 days in my bedroom. It didn't even have a bathroom. And every time I had to go to the washroom, I had to knock the door. And this was when I was 17 years old or 16. And I remember my dad would just come and knock on the door and slide my food in like you're in jail. He would just slide in 3 meals a day. And this happened for 3 days. So I picked up all these fragmented parts of myself that kept looking for love from external sources. I kept looking for love. Even when I started my YouTube channel, I wasn't fully healed. Like your love healed me. I felt like I was still at some point seeking love, craving love. And now I feel so healed by all your love, by Siman's love, and the love that I feel for myself finally, that I can express my inner child, which is the most powerful side of me. And I feel something very powerful birthing in me. Very, very powerful. Even Siman, every time he's looking at me, he's named my inner child something very cute. He calls her Pochi. So he's like, Pochi is my favorite. Pochi is my favorite. So he's like, Pochi, Miss Pochi has the stage. And his encouragement and your encouragement in telling me that my hair is pretty is really healing me. But you know, when I went back and I picked up all those inner child, all those versions of myself that were fragmented, you know what I did? I went in a Rolls Royce Bentley because I went back as Eldora, like right now. I said, all right, I'm going to pick all those versions of myself up. So in my visualization and my healing, I've got a Rolls Royce Bentley limousine. Picked each of them up and I said, all right, bitches, let's go party. Literally, that's the first thing I said. All right, bitches, let's go party. And I remember I took them and got them like pedicures, manicures. I flew them in a private jet to some luxurious destination. And I said, we're going to play. So what we're doing now is the 3 of us, like me and those 2 or 3 versions of my inner child, we're playing. I take them to the pool. I take them to the beach. I feel them in my aura, and I've said you don't need to merge with me till you feel safe enough, you feel whole enough to merge with me. But it's been such a fun time because, oh, and one more thing I wanted to say, what really triggered it on my birthday, what triggered this whole thing was this memory I have, just like Siman had that memory of him being 3 and crying uncontrollably in the bathroom because his father just locked him there because he didn't know what to do. Mine was when I was in grade 3, so I was 8 years old. And I remember for some reason, nobody ever liked me. Like in my school, everyone had best friends. Everybody had friendships. I didn't have any friends. For some reason, I always thought something's wrong with me. People don't like me. I'm not fun. Or I don't know. For some reason, people didn't really like to play with me and stuff. So I was always the lone wolf. And I remember in grade 3, we were all going on a school picnic. We were going away for 3 nights for those of you in India, we were going to Chitradurga, Hospet and Hampi of all places. You guys will laugh because of how archaic they sound, but anyway. And I remember the morning, I was so excited. I woke up, 8-year-old girl, I woke up and I said, I'm going on an excursion, yay, with my school friends. And my mother and I went to the school bus. It was like 7 in the morning. We were all excited. We sat in the bus was full. And there was and everybody rushed to sit with their best friends. Everybody rushed to sit with their best friends. And there was only one girl who had nobody sitting beside her in the bus. And that was me. Nobody sat with me. And I remember, even then I was okay because I was fine. And I remember looking out at my mother. She was waving to me in the bus. And she said, nobody wants to sit with you. And I took that burden because I've hurt my mother. Even there, I was such an empath. Instead of worrying about me, I started thinking, I've hurt my mother. I've let down my mother. My mother deserves better. My mother deserves a child who has more friends and who's more popular. So you see how much we empaths have taken on ourselves. So I just wanted to share that. Siman's going to share with you how all these, it's very important right now. The child, the inner child, the Christed inner child is the Ascended Master. And he or she is waiting to come back and merge with you.
You know how Jesus Christ once quoted, Jesus Christ once said that none of us will enter the kingdom of heaven unless we become like children. And that's really the key transmission here, that right now humanity is on the brink of going through a massive healing because we are carrying all these inner child wounds. We've never felt safe on this planet and we've just been chugging along, but now all of that's going to change because we're finally coming to a state of world affairs. You may not be able to see this, but we see it because we've been shown the future timelines. We're coming into a stage of world healing where Earth is going to become a safe space in the next few years, not in 100 years.
No.
In the next few years.
Yes.
In the next 2, 3 to 4 years,
yes.
It's going to become a completely safe place, and this collective healing of the inner child is taking place. And part of that is also being conscious of the way we're raising our children, because one more thing that we do as humanity is whatever we have not healed within ourselves, we pass unconsciously to our children. So if you were abused and you have not healed it, then you will abuse your children and let them replay those traumas until they decide to heal it at a soul level. So our parents are not bad people. They're just unconscious people who are unconsciously playing out the traumas of their childhood. And it's a repetitive cycle. But this cycle is going to come to an end now, because we're becoming conscious. We're becoming self-aware to a point where we have the tools and the techniques needed to heal these wounds. And that is the main transmission that I wanted to share with everyone.
Before you share the tools, I also want to add that if you guys have parents that, you know how I said we look at them as 3D actors, when there's no love, we literally, that's what gave us the strength. And this was all guidance when we had to move away from our own families, our own parents, especially parents. Like for Siman, it was harder than it was for me, because he kept thinking they didn't do anything wrong. Like, they're not bad people. He kept justifying it. But every time he went around them, his energy would shrink, his chakras would shrink. He'd
I
feel
didn't
like
want to
shit.
be around them. For the last few years, because of this healing coming up, I just felt I need my space from my parents. And society creates so much guilt for you to need your own space. It says, nope, you need to put others first. How dare you separate yourself from your parents?
Your parents are old, they need you.
Exactly.
These are all the traps.
These are all the traps that that make it almost impossible for us to heal these wounds, because without having your own space, you can't really create a space for healing. Because eventually, when it comes down to it, not your mother, not your spouse, not your child is safe for you. No one can love you to the extent that you can love yourself. And when you realize that, and when you go back within and say, I'm going to prioritize myself now at this point in my life, and I'm going to create the space and distance from others that I need to go through this healing, then you'll be ready to receive this.
Yes.
And whenever that point comes for you, I wanted to share this technique that our higher selves showed us. So let's say you are triggered by something that feels very traumatic, and it just feels like someone's hurt you very badly. And allow yourself, first of all, to feel that, and feel it in a non-judgmental way. Feel it within yourself as just the feeling, without projecting that feeling onto the person who seemingly caused it, and without blaming. So that's the first step. Detach from the blame and realize that every situation in your life where healing comes up is created by yourself, for yourself. So when you come to that realization, allow yourself to first go into that pain. For me, that pain was that 2-year-old who felt so abandoned, so lonely. He just felt like, how could my parents treat me this way? How could this is inhumane to be locked up in a isolation like this at such a young age, and nobody's there to hear my cries and hear my calls. And all of those emotions started surfacing in me, and I allowed myself to feel them. I'm just going in my own healing chamber and feeling all these feelings.
And when you felt them, you were shown how you started seeing how you've been carrying this as an armor around you.
Yes.
Like in his energy field, he feels stiff. He almost feels stiff because he has this armor around him that Earth isn't safe.
Yes.
Like
and
screw
because
this,
of that,
humanity is not worth it.
The way I expressed myself on YouTube, initially when we started our YouTube journey, we got attacked by the spiritual community of Toronto because they were triggered by our success or the growth in our following. And that attack also reflected to me that the world is not safe. So I kind of distanced myself from social media for like a good year, and I was not allowing myself to, I was not even able to express myself fully because of those wounds that kept on resurfacing. So now your love is healing us to such a deep level, and we cannot mention that enough. So thank you guys for being a part of our healing journey, and we may not respond to each and every one of you, but each one of your comments is healing us at a deep cellular level. Just know that, and your love is felt so
and you know
deeply.
what I was shown recently? That we have a soul contract, you guys. You know how we have a soul contract to share our guidance with you and help you and assist you in your journey? I had seen that before, but what I was shown on my birthday is that you guys have a soul contract with me and with Siman to pump us with the love needed for us to rise in our journey. And I really, really love you guys.
Exactly. And so going back to the transmission that our guides gave us, is that when an old emotional wound is triggered, or when any emotional wound is triggered, allow yourself to go back into your life and bring into your memory or bring into your mind's eye all the times that you felt that way. Whenever in your life you felt that energy signature. For example, when we were doing Eldora's healing, her triggers came up when she was with her in-laws and they always shunned her, and then that teenage version of her that was locked up in a room for 3 days, and then the very young version of her in her first few years of childhood that was abused, that was beat, that was burned, that was constantly tormented, and she never felt safe in her home. And so in her case, she brought up these 3 versions of herself: the young child, the teenager, and the middle-age version that was rejected. So bring all of these versions of you in your forefront, where you felt this particular emotion, whatever that may be, whatever that triggered this particular healing. Bring all versions of you that felt that in your life, and you'll easily be shown that. Sometimes it can even trigger a memory
Keep going. I think someone's at the door. You keep going.
Sure. Sometimes it could even trigger a memory from a past life. So if you're seeing suddenly a flash of an incident which you don't have any idea where this memory is coming from, then realize that it may be a past life memory. So allow that. So hold space for yourself, and then bring all these versions of you in front of you and start talking to them. Start a dialogue with them as if you are the parent and those are your children. So this is the process of inner child healing that was shown to us, and it worked very effectively. So bring those versions of you that needed that healing in those situations. And then we're going to insert a technique called timeline healing, where you're going back into the past. You're going back into that trauma. And I know that sometimes going into these traumatic past memories can be extremely, how should I say it? Like they can cause a whole bag of emotions to open up that we didn't even know we carried. So allow yourself, don't be methodical about it. Allow yourself to feel and express as much as possible. It's okay to cry. It's okay to bawl. It's okay to release all these emotions, because when we're releasing these emotions and replaying those memories, it's not a bad thing. You only have to feel these emotions once. The heart has emotional intelligence. So it's allowing you to go back to feel these emotions because you're in a safe space, and allow yourself to release all these emotions fully. So once we release all these emotions, we're already feeling a lot lighter. A lot of the healing has already taken place. But the next step is going one level deeper and rewriting our history with our higher self this time. So this is a technique called timeline healing that many healers use. And in this particular case, what I did for myself as an example is I went back to my past, and I went back into that washroom where that 2-year-old version of me was locked up. And I went as a parent. I went as the parent of that child, and I picked him up in his agony, and I let him feel safe again. So my higher self was just guiding me to hold that version of me and just hug him and give him as much love in that moment as he needed. So it may seem from a third dimensional logical perspective that you're just imagining all this up, but what's actually happening is that because we are quantum beings, we are accessing the database of our Akashic records. So we're actually going back into these past timelines, past versions of ourselves. We're actually time traveling back into our own life, and we are healing our traumas with this technique in a quantum way. And it's actually the scars that are left in our soul that are fragmented because of that wound are actually going to be filled up and healed. So you're not going to feel all of this baggage that you've been carrying anymore. So I went back and I gave that version of myself unconditional love, and I stayed in that place for 2 hours. I stayed on my bed and I just lied down, and I imagined that a 2-year-old baby version of me was in my chest, just hugging me on my chest. And this personality, you'll notice, this personality has a mind of its own. It's like it's not part of your imagination. Just know that. Know that it's a fragmented version of you that has its own characteristic, own personality. And the main objective of timeline healing is to merge all aspects of you that have become fragmented because of your traumas. So bring all versions of you that you have locked up inside you, that you have not been able to deal with until this moment. So in Eldora's case, her 3 versions that came up in front of her were her early childhood when she didn't feel safe, her teenage version where she was locked up, and another version from her middle age where she was criticized and judged by her in-laws. So in her case, she brought all these versions of herself, and she gave them unconditional love. She gave them the kind of love that they deserved. And slowly, when we use this process, you can use your imagination to create any situation that your mind desires. Ask that inner child, talk to that inner child, and ask them what they need and let them guide you. That inner child will actually start responding to you. Like you can talk to them and say, hey, would you like to go out on a date with me? Let me take you out for some ice cream. Would you like that? Just be their friend. Just be their unconditionally loving friend, mentor, parent, guardian that you did not have at that age. So give yourself the gift of unconditional love. And you can when you go out on a date, imagine the date with your inner child in as much detail as possible. Take them out to the park, let them play, let them express themselves, be their best friend. In Eldora's case, one technique that really helped her was when she was an adult version of herself talking to her youngest version. The youngest version could not relate to the adult version, because the youngest version was who was sitting alone in the bus was just craving a best friend who was her age, and she didn't want to be alone on the bus. Everybody else was sitting with their best friends on that excursion, but Eldora was alone on that bus. So that inner child version of her craved a best friend. So I suggested to Eldora, why don't you go back into that timeline, instead of as an adult, go as go at an age that matches your child's age, your inner child's age, and be her best friend. And that changed the whole scenario for her. So when she went back as the best friend of her own inner child and said, hey, would you want to be friends and let's enjoy this excursion together? And then her inner child was bubbling with joy and excitement, because that's all she craved. And in effect, we are not only rewriting our past memories, but we're actually doing quantum healing on a soul level. So this is a very powerful technique, and this is something you can apply every time your wounds surface. So another thing to remember is that it's not enough to just do this once and then think you're done with it, because wounds are like layers of an onion. You peel off one layer and then another layer will come. So you have to be patient with this process, and don't judge yourself for feeling this way. Don't judge yourself for feeling sad. Don't judge yourself for, why hasn't this not healed? Why haven't I not moved on? Oh my God, this is such like, be patient with yourself. A lot of people I know are in a space where they've spent so much time trying to heal their wounds, but when the wound resurfaces, they start getting irritated with themselves, and that causes a block in our healing process. You cannot be irritated with yourself, because every time a wound resurfaces, it's like a fragmented inner child version of you saying, hey, I need love, can you give me some attention? And your adult current version may say, nope, I'm busy today, I have to work, I have to take my kids to a soccer practice, I just don't have time for this, and why wouldn't you just go away? So you know, when we do that, when we reject our own healing, what we're in effect doing is we're rejecting our own inner child, and that inner child personality goes back into their fragmented state and waits for you to realize, or waits for you to come to a point in your life where you realize how important this healing really is, and for you to make the time available for yourself to go through this process. So that's one big technique, one very big tip that I wanted to leave you with, to be patient with yourself and don't rush the process. Allow yourself to go through this as many times as possible, and keep nurturing those inner children, those fragmented versions of yourself, and keep on giving them everything they need, and tell them that you are always there for them. Tell them that it's okay to feel safe on planet Earth right now, because now you are their guardian, and tell them that you will be there for them unconditionally, no matter what. And when we do this, when we create a safe space for our own inner child, when I spent this healing session with my child for 2 hours, and I held him and I nurtured him in my heart chakra, I felt this golden healing frequency start emitting out of my heart chakra, and this golden light was enveloping my inner child, and my inner child started becoming so healed by this frequency that I actually saw with my third eye this inner child dissolving into my heart chakra, and that's a symbol. That was a symbol of the healing that's taking place, because when the healing really comes to a completion, you'll feel that all fragmented versions of you eventually merge with you, and you'll see this, you'll be shown this in one way or another, or you'll just feel it, that you no longer feel that there's a fragmented version of you that wants attention. You'll just feel whole again, and those traumas will not surface. So how do you know that this healing process has completed? Is when in the next time in the future when a similar situation is created, you simply won't be triggered by it, and it'll be like the biggest aha moment. And that's something that we experience in our daily lives when we experience a situation that in the past triggered us, and this time we just float through it and we're like, oh, that's not a big deal, it's not triggering me anymore. Then we realize how much progress we've actually made. So this is a very powerful technique that I highly recommend for everyone. And I'll go get Eldora for the rest of the video. So that's basically the process.
He actually stopped the video, got me, and said, no, I want you to be there for the last. I'm like, just finish it. I've said everything I needed to say. He's like, no, no, come back. Let's do it together.
Because I wanted to finish on the same page that we started.
Siman has been such a huge part of my healing, you guys. I can't even tell you, in the first few years of our relationship, all the healing, everything that happened in us. Literally, there was one particular healing. It deserves a video of its own, where he channeled Archangel Metatron, and Metatron literally fully imposed himself in Siman's body, and Siman was still Siman, but his energy was huge. And Metatron worked on me. This was, we were both under, we had taken a sacred medicine, the sacred fungi. And he's actually a shaman of that particular medicine. He was initiated by the mushroom realms, by the fungi realm. It was very powerful. But all his initiations happened as a result of our healings. Do you know what I mean? Our meeting together, it exploded multiple gifts of our spiritual abilities. And what we've been shown is all those abilities have been activated and then held back, activated and then held back. So first we did ceremonies, then we did conscious dance parties, then we did retreats, because we're fully following guidance. And every time one guidance says, all right, now you can put this in the background and go back into another, we follow it. But now in Costa Rica, we were not, I wasn't expecting it. I remember he sat on the plane from Toronto and he says, babe, I don't know how, but I'm being shown very clearly that as soon as we land in Costa Rica, all the timelines are going to open up within the next 5 years. Like one will start this year, one will start that year. And I said, no, it's impossible. Like, we're not even, I don't even want to meet people right now. I need to go through my own healing of feeling safe. And literally, he was right. Like, everything right now is culminating to, so many of you might relate to this. All your gifts are still in your bags. They're going to come out. But that inner child healing, give your inner child the front focus of your life. Like, don't shun your inner child. People would always make fun of me, make fun of Siman when we were children. Like, I'm sure
yeah, that's one more point I wanted to mention, is that most of the empaths in the world are the ones who were shunned in their childhood.
Yes.
Like, we were the odd ones out, we were the black sheep, and we were the ones that other kids, some in one way or another, labeled as weird or different.
Until I got boobs, everything changed. Literally, everybody picked on me until I got luxury, boobs. So. And instantly, I became the most popular girl in class. And I'm like, all right, that's how it works. I went from being like the most, nobody cared about girl to the most popular girl. So I really enjoyed and milked that popularity, by the way. I milked it.
No pun intended. I don't know what you did, but I don't want to know.
Only you milk it. Okay, no, we're going to cut that out.
Too much information.
Okay, we'll cut that out.
Yeah, so basically, this is very important, guys, whenever this healing comes up, whenever your inner child wounds surface, first of all, recognizing that they go back to childhood, they go back to past lives, and we cannot really fully express all of our gifts that we came to share with humanity until our own healing is done.
Yes.
So that is the most important message that we wanted to give you, and to share with you our own healing journey, so that you are empowered and enabled. You don't need a healer. You are your own best healer. Yeah, so give yourself extra TLC, and
you do you.
Exactly. And
have a great time, guys.
We love you guys.
We love you. This was so amazing, so spontaneous. I can't believe we made 2 videos back to back. One yesterday, one today. We're on a roll. Another one coming up. He got a massive download, like what, 2 days ago?
Yeah, a couple of days.
No, it was about last week. It was about a week ago. He got a massive download. And I'm like, there's downloads are coming so fast. We can't keep up.
Yeah, you guys are in for some nice little gifts.
Yeah. The next one, we have 2 more. There's one messages from the guides. And then there's the other one with the download. So yeah, we're excited. I think we'll make more videos tomorrow as well. So much love, you guys.
Take
Thank
care,
you.
guys.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.